Hey guys, wanted to put together a video to help you all understand the differences between maybe redraft and dynasty and get everyone started on sleeper. I think and I only have like 1 year of dynasty under my belt, but I wanted to give some tips, that maybe from mistakes that I had made in my first draft, and also just get you guys acquainted with all the rules here. So we'll start out with the very basics. You got to download the Sleeper app and join the league. We posted the link a million times. So on Sleeper, you'll see the main page is this draft page. And it's really easy to enter the draft room. You've got this draft room button here. We'll just do that on draft day. And we don't have any settings right now of like where people are going to draft, so you're not going to see that right now at the top, but you will see like a list of players that you're drafting at the bottom, and all you have to do is click the draft button on the left to get the guy you want. You can also queue up players. These guys go into your queue, and you can draft them later. And then your team is over here. You'll see your roster. What spots you have to fill. As the draft goes on, this will fill up, and you'll see, okay, I still need a tight end, or I still need a QB, things like that. And you'll notice that we have a lot of bench spots, so that'll be something to get used to. If you want some practice drafting, there's a mock draft button. You can start a mock draft and do whatever you want there. I highly recommend that just to see where players are falling. But that's about it. It's pretty straightforward. We'll definitely be using Sleeper to draft as we go because it'll keep track of everything like trading picks and things like that. One of the first things you'll notice is this is a long draft. The startup draft is long. We've got 29 rounds. That's going to seem overwhelming. I believe at some point I'll change the timer to something really short on how long you get to pick. So something like a minute or something like that. Once we get to like round 15 or so, and just try to blaze through the last few rounds of the draft. But it is different from every redraft league you've ever done, in that you're going to have benches that are much bigger than your starting lineup. One thing I'd recommend is to look at your scoring settings. You can just scroll down to do that. Sleeper has a little notification here that like the non-standard settings will be highlighted, so you can see that. Like, for example, we always play with 2 points deduction for a pass intercepted. I think the average sleeper league is just -1. Things like that. You can see all the bonuses here. We'll probably tweak these as we get closer to the season, but this is helpful to kind of get used to how this all works. And one thing, I know everybody loves their bonuses here. We've got our 100 to 199 yard rushing game is 5 points, and then 200 is 10 points. Those bonuses don't stack, right? So you're not going to get 15 points when you rush over 200 yards. But any receptions bonuses. So if we scroll to the receptions here, these do stack. So if you have like a 50-yard reception, that's going to be 5 points plus the 40-yard reception bonus, 2 points. That'd be 7 total. I know, that's a lot of math. So I guess I wanted to go over some really basic draft tips. I'm actually going to go over to one of my other leagues to show you guys. Let's go over to a startup I just did. Actually, no, let's go to my main league. We can do this. Okay. So this is the one. This is the league that I actually was in last year. This is my first time playing Dynasty. You can see the benches are pretty big here. One of the things I wanted to point out that is is very different. Like the first draft tip that you need to know for Dynasty is we have this thing called a taxi squad. Um, Taxi squad is, we can set how big we want this to be. I think 5 is a really good number here. So you can only put rookies or sophomores on this taxi squad, and basically they can be promoted off of the taxi squad to your bench at any point. So like I could do that. I could promote Noah Gray here up to the bench. I'm not going to right now, but once you promote them, they can't go back to your taxi squad. So you'll just have kind of an open spot sitting there. And that gets locked at the start of the season. You can move around your taxi squad before the season starts, at least based on the settings that we have. Um, and another thing you're going to notice, and one more thing about that, you should make sure on the startup draft, this is a really big piece that I didn't know about just coming from redraft. You should absolutely draft 5 rookies or sophomores, so we can have sophomores as well on our taxi squad. So just be sure that you have 5 of those players drafted to put on your taxi. Otherwise, you're just behind everybody else. You'll have to maybe drop some players and pick up some guys because you want to stash these guys. Maybe they're not gonna. You're looking for players that maybe they're not going to score a lot of points this year, but you want to see what they develop into. And a lot of times these are either rookie running backs that are behind a starter, that like an established starter, or tight ends usually take a few years to develop. Usually like year 3 is when they start to break out. Throwing guys like that on the taxi squad is really good. Also, you can see like Jameson Williams here. He's going to be hurt at the beginning of the season. I'm not going to use him too much. Maybe a good spot to have him on the taxi. So the next thing that's kind of different about Dynasty is like your draft picks. And so Sleeper is, I'm not a paid shill, I swear, but Sleeper is going to keep track of these draft picks, which is really, really nice. It depends on the league how many draft picks you're going to have. Every year you're going to get all new draft picks. So like we're showing here 3 years worth of draft picks, 2023, 2024, and 2025. And as soon as your rookie draft is over, you're going to get, that new round. This year I got 5 new 2025 picks because the season started and I have those available to me. You can start trading them immediately if you want to. And Sleeper does all the trading, which we can get into. But on the team tab here, you'll have all your players, your starting lineup, your bench, IR, taxi squad, and your draft picks listed. And if you have any picks from somebody else, like in this case, I have a 2023 first from Jonesy. Right, it's all listed there. And so when whatever Jonesy finishes as in 2023, I'll get his first round pick wherever he ends up. So let's go back to like a couple differences in the drafts. We've got a startup draft that we're doing, and in the startup draft, it's a snake draft. So we can look at the picks here just to kind of see that, right? If I scroll to the right, the last pick of the first round is 1.14. The first pick of the second round is 2.1, and so if you're in that 14 slot, you're going to get the first pick, the last pick of the first round, first pick of the second round. This is how startups are based on that kind of snake draft format. But for rookie drafts, it's a linear draft. So wherever you finish in the league, let's say you were the worst team, for example, and scored the least amount of points, didn't make the playoffs. you'd get the 1.1 in your rookie draft. You get the 2.1, the 3.1, the 4.1, and the 5.1. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of trades there, but you're the first pick in every single round. So that's just something to keep in mind. So picks, you should kind of value them. You're never going to be able to guess exactly where some team is going to land, but you could always just in a safe way like guess that someone's pick is going to land somewhere in the middle, and just say it's like a mid first or a mid second, something like that, like 1.7, 2.7, things like that. But if you know a team's really bad, maybe you're more excited about that pick. So I wanted to talk a little bit about draft strategy. This is going to be hard for like a first time startup. I know it was hard for me, but you really should go in with at least strategies to kind of pivot to in the draft. And I know some of you are thinking, oh my gosh, like why do I have to have a strategy while I'm drafting players here? Well, I'm just hoping to make it easier on you. You can kind of pivot to one of these strategies once you see how the draft board is falling out. So just like any other redraft league, you're going to want to take the value on the board. So if Jonathan Taylor falls to you, you take him, right? And it doesn't really matter what your strategy is. But once you get a little bit into the draft, you're going to start seeing guys fall for one reason or another, right? And maybe our league overvalues youth and they're drafting a lot of young players, and all these older veteran players are falling to you. You'll notice on the draft settings here, like Jamar Chase, like young and good players are listed really high in the rankings, right? So like Jonathan Taylor, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. But Dalvin Cook or Christian McCaffrey could easily outscore those guys this year. They're much further into their careers. So age has become a factor here. You can see their age when you click on the player's profile here. So like Austin Eckler, he has 5 years of experience, 27. It's not a hard and fast rule, but running backs tend to kind of fall off a cliff after their age 28 season. So that's just something to keep in mind. But in any case, with draft strategy here, maybe you can get some of these bets. They start falling to you and you keep getting them. Well, maybe you need to try and win this year. And you need to ask yourself that question, like maybe 4 or 5 picks into the draft, like, can I win this year? And you can start targeting players that are going to help you win this year, and not so much like the project players that are going to take a few years to develop. The Dynasty community is obsessed with those project players. Like, Javonte Williams is rated super highly. He's in a good situation. He's on a good team with a good quarterback. Looks really talented. But he hasn't produced anything yet, right? So you're drafting on potential there. Austin Eckler has proven it. Derrick Henry's proven it over the years. A guy like Kyle Pitts is rated really highly, for example. So Dynasty definitely values youth, and you've got to keep in mind you are keeping these players on your team year over year, right? That's like the big difference between redraft and Dynasty. But you don't want to overvalue youth too much. You have to score points, and so guys like Dalvin Cook are going to be very useful for your team. With that being said, another strategy, if you're not, if you don't look, it doesn't look like you're like getting a lot of value in the draft in terms of vets. If you don't look like you're going to score a lot of points this year, maybe you need to pivot to more of what they call a productive struggle, where you're picking some of these younger players that have a lot of potential, like the Kyle Pitts, and Jalen Waddle, guys like that, and you're skipping over guys like Aaron Jones who are pretty far into their careers. So all I'm really asking is, like, at some point try to like have some direction with your team, because it's going to help you peak at the right time. That's all Dynasty is about, is your team peaking and really just having way more value than anyone else at the right time. That's when you go all in, you trade all your picks for players, and you try to win that year. And it might not work out, but at least you've kind of given it your all. I guess one other tip is just managing your bench. You're gonna have we're gonna draft a lot of players pretty late here, and some of these guys you're not gonna know who they are. But depending on your strategy, you want to pick up a guy like Alan Lazard, who could be a number one this year, but maybe is not like a supremely talented player. Maybe he could score some points for you on bye weeks and keep you contending. So like every player has some value, except for like Sam Darnold at this point, since Baker just got traded. But you want to use those end of bench spots wisely, depending on your strategy. And I think I've talked about trades enough, kind of skirted around trades enough here to at least show how trades work on Sleeper. So let's go to my first Dynasty League here. So what you do once you get to the main screen here, just swipe to the right, and you'll see a bunch of settings on the side. Just go to trade, and you can hit this trade center button, trade at the top right. So it's pretty easy to start a trade proposal. Let's say I wanted to trade here with Wolf. We can start a trade proposal. It'll put our teams next to each other, and you can see like they're color coded here, and for the different positions. And so then you can just start trading whoever you want. Maybe I want to go after my favorite running back, Josh Jacobs, and I want to send over, I don't know. My running backs are pretty terrible. Maybe he really wants a wide receiver, so I'm giving up like a Jerry Jeudy. And then at the bottom, the thing that's a little different from what you're used to in redraft is you can start trading picks. So maybe I have to sweeten the deal and throw in my second round pick the next year. You can view that trade proposal and then send it. I'm not going to send that trade because I'm not looking for Josh Jacobs in this rebuild here. But that's how you do that. And then if you go to this will actually create a trade in your direct messages here at the top. And it'll keep track of those trades that you have with people. You can see some different trades people have proposed, and kind of go back on that history. But that's pretty much it on trading in Sleeper. Now, this is going to seem a little overwhelming, and I've got a couple tools for you guys that you can use. These are kind of my favorite sites for Dynasty. So you can just Google Keep Trade Cut. So we'll go to this keeptradecut.com. So on Keep Trade Cut, you're going to be asked pretty much immediately your thoughts on these players. And what this site is a user-driven rankings of the Dynasty, like a community ranking system of Dynasty players and picks. You can always go to the bottom here and just say, I don't know these players. Or you can say, like, this guy's the best, this guy's second best, cut him. in terms of value. Now, we're not playing with Superflex. That's something really to keep in mind when you're looking at keep trade cut. So you could turn that off, and then they don't even want you to answer the question. So why this site is cool is right here. You can start comparing players and their values. So let's go back to my trade that I was doing. Let's put in Josh Jacobs. So we got Josh Jacobs here. He's listed as running back 22. He's 24 years old. He finished higher than running back 22 last year, but he's getting older. So even though the offense got better with Devontae Adams, they're still projecting him as the 22nd best asset as far as running backs go. So that's a value of 4,815. And so in the second team, so that's team one, gets that player. This is just like a trade calculator here, right? Jerry Jeudy. Let's put that in. Okay. So Jerry Jeudy's value has spiked. I need to go and look for trades for Jerry Jeudy at this point. His value has spiked a ton. Obviously, I was giving up a little too much in my trade for Josh Jacobs. So basically, this is saying that Jerry Jeudy is worth more to the average Dynasty player than Josh Jacobs. Now, if we scroll down to here, we can see like what players do we need to even that trade. You can see you could add like Davis Mills or Terrace Marshall, all these guys to the Josh Jacobs side to even this all out. Another thing you can do, though, is you can start typing in picks. So I could add in a 2023 mid second round pick, right? And it's going to value what that is. And then it's going to tell you, recalculate the trade and give you an idea of whatever, how close that trade is. I always like to put in a mid second round pick. Even in our league, it might be better to even put a late second round pick. I guess one thing I should start out with is Keep Trade Cut is based on a 12-team league, and ours is a 14-team league, which isn't as common. So your picks are inherently worth less in comparison to that 12-team league because you're picking, obviously 14 players instead of 12. The 14th guy off the board is worse than the 12th guy off the board. So I think it's wise to at least put mid on most of the picks that you put in here before you do a trade. So you can play around with this and try and find a trade that makes sense to you. Obviously, this is like the Dynasty community's rankings, and you're going to have your own thoughts about these things. So I think this is just a good way to check if you think this trade is like close to fair, whatever you're proposing. You don't have to make the trade completely even to take the trade. You can take losses on trades, which is like a whole in terms of what the Dynasty community values and still come out on top. So as far as getting trade conversations started, I just remembered one thing to do. So if we go back to the trade section here. So one thing you can do that I had not pointed out before is put players on the trade block and also like different players. So you see these hearts and trade block things. So you can put any player you want on the bottom icon here on the trade block. And then you can go through and like other people's players. And maybe that'll get the conversation started on any sort of trades that you want to do. Some people think that's like signaling that you'll take a bad deal for that player that you like, but I think it's fine. Okay, and then everybody uses Reddit. Dynasty FF is the best place to talk Dynasty. I feel like these guys are pretty sharp. Definitely use this as much as you can. You can do trade advice or just keep up with any of the news. Like today, Baker Mayfield got traded. That is mostly it. Feel free, if you've got questions, to send them over to me. I guess I'll leave, just one last piece of advice here. Really wait. I know everybody's going to try and play like the Sam Presti method of just gathering millions of picks, but I would definitely wait until mid-season before you make any big trades. Our trade deadline is week 14. Unless you just get an offer you can't refuse, uh, try and just wait it out and see how your players develop, kind of trust your process. And if it doesn't work, you can blow it up and try again next year. I do highly recommend having a strategy, though. If you look like you're going to finish middle of the pack, there's nothing worse than like barely missing out on the playoffs and drafting pretty late in your rookie draft, and not getting a player that can substantially improve your team. So the draft is a bit of a crapshoot. So you could get like an awesome player like Alvin Kamara or Aaron Jones with your 4th-round pick, but it's pretty unlikely. So the best way to get those blue chip players is to perform poorly. So have the least amount of points. But yeah, hopefully that was helpful. Let me know if you got any questions.